Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Stream live each week, Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by diversity, equity, and inclusion strategists and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommie Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis, and I'm the President and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation. And I'm joined this morning by my good friend and brother,
Tommie Lewis, President and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Tommie. What's up, man? What's good?
Oh, it's good. It's a good, beautiful day. It's raining here in the Midwest.
That's right, lightly.
But that's all good. That's all good. We
Right.
do get that thing called precipitation in the air.
That's right.
But the best thing, I think, Eric, is that weather is a reminder of how small we are as human beings.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that we cannot control,
Right.
and the weather is one of them.
Right.
So we try to control it. You know, we talk about things, but we can't. So
That's right.
what I would like to invite all of our listeners, as we continue to join diversity conversations, love our families, love our friends, not to be fair weather
Okay.
about anything.
I like that.
Fair weather.
I like that.
I've committed myself not to be a fair weather friend, a fair weather brother, a fair weather lover. No, I am trying to be consistent. I'm trying to be refreshing, and I'm trying to kind of ebb and flow sometimes with the environment. Right. And so that's my charge for today. I'm very, very happy and blessed to be here once again with you today.
Yeah. Same here, Tommie. It's been a good week. We met with Robert Bell, the director of Hamilton County's Economic Inclusion and Equity Office. Had a great meeting with him. He's doing some real breakthrough kinds of things in a world where people are beginning to back away from inclusion and diversity. He's moving full steam ahead with no shame at all in his game. And really, has done some disparity studies that make the case for the need to make sure that we're diversifying businesses that are able to, minority businesses that are able to do business with the county. And so we're excited about that. The other thing that I did this week is LG Wise, his wife, Suzanne, works for Integrity. They've moved to North Carolina, and she works for us remotely now. I think she's been working with us for 20 years, Tommie, and just a real blessing. Tommie and I, Tommie was listening while somebody was trying to defraud me yesterday on the phone. So we're sitting here, and the person's trying to tell me I need to buy $22,000 in Bitcoin so I can erase the $22,000. I said, well, that sounds fraudulent.
In and of itself.
Yeah, they're supposed to be from my bank.
Right.
Yeah. So we got through that. But I said that to say Suzanne manages my finances, Tommie, and I trust her with my life.
Yeah.
And she's the most honorable, honest person. She told my daughter when my daughter interned for her, she says, look, money's not emotional. Either we have it or we don't. And so I just love the way that she approaches money. And so her and LG Wise were here for the week. And he and I got a chance to talk about a vision that God had given him of almost sort of a cultural transformative worship experience, where we might focus on the Native Americans as being the first original wrong that was done in this country. And us sort of asking for forgiveness there, participating in some of their worship, and me sort of talking about inclusion, things like that. And so when we started talking about that, I just felt the hand of God on that, because he wants to bring the church together in part to refine its original call. And I just happen to say, I hear God saying, give me a chance. And that's what DEI is. A lot of it is about, is giving people chances. And what we saw, I'll just say one last thing, and then we're going to bring up Anthony Jones. I saw the church as too often being a place that seems to receive from the people.
Yeah.
Taking up offerings and things like that. And then building big buildings. And really, you don't see enough of that, the resources, the talent going back into the lives of the people. And so I saw this as being an experience where we would be partnering people up, where they'd be helping each other out, giving folks chances, whether they're Appalachian or Black or Hispanic, Latino, that we would be looking out for one another. So that was something that excited me. I really felt the anointing of God on it, and I'm looking forward to how that vision might come to fruition.
Eric, I think that's a great experience you had, and insights on institutions. So it could be the church, it could be institutions of higher learning.
That's right.
It could
That's
be
right.
institutions
That's right,
of civic and nonprofit organizations,
exactly.
as well as the institution of community.
Right.
That we are constantly having to redefine what these institutions mean and how we are actually continuing to bring value to the people who embrace the institution, support the institution, and more importantly, who need the institution. So again, if it's the institution of church, institution of higher education, institution of community, in the days that we live in now, we're learning that there are multiple attacks.
That's right, Tommie.
On institutions,
and the people that depend on them.
And the people that depend on them.
Right, because we didn't think that the church was the starting place.
Right.
Because many people have lost faith in churches. And so my experience is that the church catches on sometimes late. And that if you go out and you do something that's making a difference in the world, then the church will say, hey, we want to get on board with this. But for us, we don't want it to lose its power and value because people view it as something that's limiting or discriminatory against them. So we do believe that there is a place for worship and music and that kind of experience. But we really are looking at how do we redirect our vision from looking for Washington and other places to save us, to redirecting them towards institutions that are closer to us, but people being at the heart of this.
Yeah, I would like to invite folks before we engage with our guest today. I would like to invite folks to travel, to travel the world. The world, it might be different than one's view when you haven't traveled. I just make it plain there.
That's good, Tom.
And what triggered this comment, Eric, was a lot about how we see the church. And I thought about, I've been to Vatican City, right, which is the church home of Catholicism, and there's opulence there, but it's very different than what one might say that haven't been there or seen it on TV, right? There's historical biography around faith, religion, and institutions. And so with that being said, if we can, Eric, bring forth our guest, our friend, our brother, Anthony Jones. Anthony Jones is by title, right, Vice President of Enrollment. And he has a number of different titles and roles. But at the end of the day, I believe, this is me speaking personally, I think that this man, like you, Eric, full transparency, he is the sharpest and the funniest man in one instant. No, I tell stories right now, and I'll get to the introduction real quick. I tell stories about when we worked together at the company, the corporation, and he had left the corporation, and I'm in training even up to last week. I said, have you ever worked with someone who could make you laugh so hard that you have belly aching laughs, right? And I said, man, this guy named AJ Jones, he was like that. He was a boss. But folks used to avoid AJ because he would make you laugh so much, right? AJ, look, I got to get back to work. But then when you need to plan. And so when he left, because people used to avoid and talk about AJ, he got all the jokes. He's a very smart guy. He keeps us laughing. And then when he left, there was a vacuum. Yeah. Flat out. Right. It wasn't as fun or funny.
That's right.
These are facts, AJ.
Right.
So we were looking around like,
what happened to all the jokes?
This is all the key jokes. Where are the jokes? Where's the laughter? Right. If you don't have anyone like an Anthony Jones in your life, you're missing something. Again, welcome, Vice President of Enrollment Management at Loyola University in New Orleans.
Yes.
Anthony Jones.
Thank you, my brothers. Thank you so much. It would take me a long time to describe how good I feel sitting on this line today, looking at the two of you. I just want the audience to know how important these two men have been in my life. When my family and I moved to Cincinnati from Nashville, young couple, believers in God, didn't know where our church home was supposed to be. this brother, Eric Ellis, said, man, y'all come on to church with us and check us out. And I remember at the time, a brother told me, he said, man, you're going to know the church that you're supposed to go to because you're going to see it in your wife's face. And we go to Solid Rock Church with Eric based on his invitation. And I remember I'm sitting there and I thought, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to look in Tanya's face. I look over at my wife. I didn't see her face. I saw her hip because sister was up shouting. I said, well, this is it. This is it. And it was fundamental to our spiritual growth, man. Being there with Eric, took me under his wing in his diversity practice and blessed me to have an opportunity to serve with him. And then Tommie Lewis, I tell you, this could not have been more of a soldier with me on the battlefield. We worked together at Inroads, a company that all three of us were blessed to be in and do work with these top minority students. And when I took over that office in Cincinnati, Tommie was one of just the best hires that I ever made. In fact, hired him again when I left and to lead diversity over at Convergence. And we just we saw some tough times, and that's why we had to laugh, because listen, you brothers understand this kind of work is not easy. And when you're challenging norms and principles that people just are die hard about and ready literally to give blood, it's tough work, and you've got to make light sometimes. So it's just a blessing to be with you, brothers. I want to just personally say thank you. I would not be sitting here having had the career that I've had over the years without your help. And I know God used you tremendously in my life. So thank you for that. And thank you for the invitation to be with you here this morning.
Absolutely, AJ. And you talk about, the Convergence days, the Inroads days, coming to Cincinnati by way of Nashville and originally by way of the Bayou down there in the New Orleans area.
Absolutely.
We're looking at 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to fast forward as we exchange this conversation. What's new with you now? Bring us up to speed, bring our audience up to speed of who you are, what you're doing.
Sure. And Well, gentlemen, you're familiar with the mountains concept, right? So these 7 mountains that they say we are sort of called to in life, right? It could be government, it could be arts and entertainment, it could be family, it could be church or a religious mountain. For me, it has been the mountain of education. It is one out of which I came when I was coming to Cincinnati. I was leaving an institution, coming there to be a part of Inroads and ultimately Convergence. And that was to gather up experiences, skill sets to return to the mountain of education. And that's really where my toil has been for the last 20 years in this space. And being in this space, it's been largely about creating access and opportunity for vulnerable communities that do not normally get the pathways into that higher education stream. And so I'm thankful that God has used me over the years to serve as the head of enrollment for multiple institutions, including Howard University, my alma mater, Fisk University, DePaul University in Indiana, most recently Bethune-Cookman University, before coming here back to Louisiana at Loyola. So the work really, gentlemen, has been about taking enrollments that have fallen, stabilizing those enrollments, and then sort of turning them around and righting the ship. So really turnaround work when it comes to enrollment. And let me just end that by saying, when you think about college budgets today and what makes up the majority of those budgets, it's tuition and fees. That's the king. And tuition comes on the head of students. And so if you got students, you got money. If you don't have students, the college is going to have issues. That's the principle, at least. So that's what I've been working in. I've been making certain that colleges have the funds they need to educate the young people that they are in mission.
I love that. Let me ask you this, Anthony. Today, young people are beginning to question the value of higher education. That's not just young people of color. That's young people across the board that are saying, is it still worth it to spend between $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 to be in debt at a time when the government is running away from any interest in supporting young people financially? Young people are saying, well, I went all the way through college to still come back here and to be rehabbing houses and doing cryptocurrency, and all those kind of, tech gig work. What's your message to young people today, especially young people of color, regarding that decision?
Well, first of all, Eric, thank you for putting your thumb on the pulse of what is, in my mind, the most critical issue that faces higher education today. We 3 brothers are fortunate to have had a college experience. And I think you will agree with me that when we were doing our college thing, particularly for people of color like us, where education has been so fundamental to us moving out of our difficult circumstances financially into, say, the middle class and then onto that of maybe the upper class. It wasn't questioned. It was that the colleges had an argument that if you're going to get ahead in life, it's with us.
Right.
Over the years, institutions, in order to react to a shrinking market, began to make choices about how to not only educate students, but entertain students. That led to larger and larger expenses. Schools started putting in things like lazy rivers, literally, that spell out the name of the school. I can think about that in LSU, for example. They got a big LSU lazy river that does that. To dormitories that have Starbucks located in them. When I was at DePaul, we built a $50 million cafeteria, gentlemen, with 5 huge fireplaces in the middle of the cafeteria. And by the way, all of it funded largely by alumni. But the point that I'm making is things began to be more and more and more expensive. And so as a result of that, prices went up in order to cover this. Students wanted it. We're going to build it. Prices are going to go up. Now, that's not in every school, but it was enough to make the public feel, wait, what is going on here? Is this fair? And then you got to look at the fact that, you look at college administrators and you've got multi-million-dollar salaries for college presidents. Never was the case before. And people really started to question, is this fair? At the same time, that became a talking point for neoconservatives who themselves feel responsible for reducing spending, whether on the state level or on the federal level. And it became a very easy target to look at institutions and say, this is not right. And so a subset of the population began to express their pain, and the government, politicians, and others began to pick up on that and push back on campuses to say, should you really have a multi-billion-dollar endowment, Harvard, Columbia? Is that right for you? And what are you doing with all of that? What are you doing with all of that money? And why are we still paying the prices we're paying if you're sitting on $1 billion? So the fundamentals began to drastically change over the last 20 years. Now, I point that out, though, in answer to your question, to say, this is what's happening in a segment of the population of higher education, not all. And where I've been doing most of my work is on the other end, under-resourced schools that don't have the $1 billion budget, don't charge exorbitant amounts. In fact, their overhead in terms of deferred maintenance, roofs on dorms, or broken down labs are huge. But they're receiving the blowback from exactly what you said, the weakening of the institution of education in general. So students that would have been there for them to be able to make their cash off of them are disappearing. Parents who would have normally said, if you're going to get ahead, you're going to do it through college, that has reduced in terms of its support, right? And the philanthropic community is saying, well, you know what? I'd rather put my dollars over here instead of giving you another $1 million to the higher education. So there's not money to give out.
Right.
And then finally, when it comes to schools like HBCUs, for example, when it comes to giving, there's a lot of competition between the church and the institution.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Black folk gonna give. I got one offering to give this month. Am I going to pay it to my university, or am I going to pay it to First Baptist? Right. And so you got all of that wrapped up to as to where we are today. So what am I saying to young people? Well, listen. The fact still remains that when you size up those who, after get into their 30s, get into the 40s, get into the 50s, who have higher earning potential, it clearly points to those that have had an education, particularly a higher education. It just does. A high school degree is good, but it is not creating the income that people need to have today. So there's still an argument. And I will just close, gentlemen, with this. Also, as long as corporations, and they do, still require the Western degree, which means the American degree is the standard bearer in the global world, higher education will still need to exist. But when corporations turn off the spigot and say, look, high school diploma is going to be good enough, we're in trouble. And I will tell you what's already happening. Companies are already figuring out how to educate their employees inside.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You've seen it, I'm sure. Google is saying, look, forget about going out of high school to college. Come to Google. We'll give you a Google certification on ... and you're good. You can advance yourself. So it's a very tense time. And the argument has to be made for us very articulately why we should still exist.
I think you've already reacted to it, but we have our community that weighs in. So Herschel Daniels Jr. has weighed in here. If you want to make a response to his comment, you've kind of touched on it already.
It says here, most studies provide that college education provides not only a platform to increase your pay. It does. And I think that speaks to the fundamentals of what we do, right? So colleges are important in terms of giving students an ability to think critically and to add skill sets to themselves that allows them to be able to synthesize large volumes of information and then give some sort of output. It does allow you to be around individuals who themselves are also pursuing higher ends. And so that kind of more increases or multiply one's network. And of course, as we all know, the network of an individual is very important to their advancement, or can be very important to their advancement in life. But what I will say, though, is that unlike 30 years ago, where one could graduate with a liberal arts degree and be fine, what the audience is telling us now, right? What the market is telling us now, they want practical degrees. In other words, they want degrees that allows them to connect one-to-one with what the market is demanding. Like, for example, there's been a huge escalation in pre-nursing majors and nursing majors. Why? Because you go in, you study nursing, you come out, you go to a hospital and you work. Versus you go in, you study English, and then you come out and maybe I can go in this direction, maybe I can go in this direction, so on and so forth. So there is this one-to-one correlation that parents and students are asking for now in their degree work. And so colleges, particularly those of us who have been largely in that liberal arts space, and all of the colleges where I've worked, gentlemen, have been just that, we are having to be far more realistic and far more self-examining about the degrees that we offer. We can't have, and this is no disrespect to those who might be philosophy majors out there or professors out there, but we can't have the philosophy department driving the conversation today. It just doesn't work. Right? It just is practically, the market is telling us something different. So it is a good question. And I do think that colleges thankfully still have some validity because they affect long-term income and the ability to have a quality network.
Let me say something about you, and then I'm gonna let Tommie jump in. So I'm sitting here listening to you, and there's 1,000 thoughts that are running through my mind. Some of them are the bias of a dominant culture person that might say to you, Anthony, you really sound so articulate. So that's one funny thought that runs through my mind. But then the second thought that chases that is how brilliant you are, and that it's a crime that the country and the world doesn't have enough opportunities to hear from subject matter experts of color who have wisdom in a space. And I just want to let you know how grateful I am that you exist in this world and that you've done your work. You've done your work in a way that makes you a tremendous ambassador for us, a credit to your race, a help to society. And I'm just blessed by listening to your expertise in this space.
Thank you, my friend. I'm humbled and I appreciate it. And may I just say, on that note, it's been a very difficult week for me personally. And the reason, in fact, if I could just be personal here for a moment, I literally wept tears this week because of the decisions that have been made that were announced by the current administration in terms of what its budget proposals are for education and higher education in particular. When you look at the kinds of cuts that are being proposed, cuts to critical programs like TRIO, for example, and Gear Up. I am a TRIO recipient myself, growing up in a single parent home with a mother who wasn't college educated, who washing dishes one night, and I'm telling her I want to go out of state, dried her hands, turned around to me and said, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it on your own because I've gotten you as far as I can. And it was TRIO that helped me to get over. And the administration is saying, let's get rid of it. They're saying that the fundamentals that needed that to happen are gone. And we can go on and on about where those cuts are. It is a sad day, Eric and Tommie, in the state of education, but more sadly for people who look like us, who have depended on education to get them where they need to be. So what I really have come to resolve this week more than ever before, and it's so ironic that we're having this conversation, is the resolution to fight. Just to fight, right? It's like, okay, you can do it on the mountaintop. Right. But right now, for the next 4 years, my friends, we are going to be in the valley. And I am committed to learning all that I can. Thank you, Eric, for with what you said, because I want to speak as much as I can, get in front of as many audiences, push Congress and others to think differently about this, and hopefully stabilize this in a way. Because, gentlemen, your grandchildren, my grandchildren, they will live in a different world when it comes to the face of education of what we're living today. I'm just hoping that we can do something today that causes that world not to be as marred as it eventually can. So thank you very much, my brother, for those kind words.
Yeah, that's very, very profound. Thank you, AJ, for sharing. And I was triggered too. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died.
Yes.
Can you talk to, in the spirit of not being in a place when hope has died, but can you talk to a couple, maybe three things? One is, how has leadership, administration, and the like pivoted from the years of yesterday to the current new reality? So that's from an administrative leadership staffing perspective. And then the other is, as students, as you mentioned, are looking for that one-to-one output, input, output. Can you speak to where maybe their own hope is wavering and they're needing to get something out because they don't know?
That's right.
They don't know. I know that's a jumbled up question, but if
I understand it. Yeah, no, I understand it completely. Listen, when it comes to administrative talent, I will admit this is one of my greatest concerns. And what I mean by that is that, when I went to an HBCU, Fisk University, it was at the time when you had these stalwarts of college presidents. These gentlemen, it was the good old boy club for real. They had been in presidencies for 10, 15, 20 years. You had Ponder at Fisk. You had Humphreys at Florida A&M. You had all of sorts of these black colleges had these gentlemen and that was a throwback from a prior year of stabilization in higher education from the turn of the century until that point. That's just what was an acceptable practice. But what would eventually happen is that the fundamentals of higher education would begin to shift. Things would become more difficult on the presidential level, more difficult to raise money. Government regulations would increase around higher ed. Students would make different decisions. Alumni who were docile before would become more articulate, even more angry. And so being a college president, and frankly, being a member of the cabinet, just became far more difficult. And so the average tenure of the college president went from some 10 to 15 years down to something like 3 to 5 years. If you had a college president that was in place 8 years, and this is not just at HBCUs, this is in general, you have something pretty special. And that's where we are today. Now, what exacerbates that is that attracting talent into higher education administration, keeping that talent long enough, I'm talking about at various levels that can be promoted up, is now more difficult. Why? Salaries are challenged. You've got bright people who can do a lot else. They will go and do a lot else. And so at the same time, technology is saying, give us more, better, faster. Give us more response, give it to us better, and give it to us faster. So that means in the lower ranks, they're grinding, and you can only grind for so much. And so people are exiting. So who's left on the bench? Oftentimes underdeveloped people, underexposed people. You talked earlier, Tommie, about how critical exposure is in terms of just understanding the world. Underexposed people, underdegreed people. And so what happens then is innovation reduces. The ability to be able to manage tough budgets is challenged. Engagement with the board and donor communities is weakened. And so colleges don't have enough colleges don't have viable leadership. So what is the result? We see colleges closing all over the place. And I'm not suggesting that this is all due to the college presidents or their cabinets, but it is largely due to the fact that you don't have individuals that are caked in this enough to be able to guide the institute. Look, I have seen and I've studied schools where presidents have made some very poor decisions because they simply just didn't know. They were promoted up, didn't have the background experience. I was talking to a friend of mine recently who serves as a college president, who's explaining to me that his predecessor made a land deal, sold off a piece of land from the college that was worth multi-millions and gave it to a developer. I mean, almost on penny on the dollar, and with a 90-year lease on the land. Ridiculous deal. Why? The person had never been a college president before. They didn't really know a whole lot, and this is the way to do it. So my point in this is that from an administrative standpoint, we are in need of developing better and better talent. I'm grateful that I'm sit on the board of trustees for the College Board. College Board is responsible for SAT, AP, all of those kinds of things. And I've really been pushing, and not have had to really push hard because they recognize we need development of new talent. And so we've started a new program called Enrollment Management Institute, where in this space of enrollment management, we're trying to train up the next level of leaders. But it's going to take that kind of concentration, Tommie, I think, to help stem the tide. And the last thing I'll say on that is that, look, nobody goes to college as an undergrad to be a college administrator. It just doesn't happen. You kind of just back into it, right? You were great this and whatever in undergrad and missions counselor, you end up and you da 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 da. we need to be more intentional about creating that next bench. And that's something that I'm hoping to work on in this next phase of my career.
Right. Let me ask you this, AJ. So I've got two questions here. One is, how and where do we begin to manifest the DEI advantage quotient? In other words, we've said to corporate America that there is this, and we've seen it. So studies have proven that companies that embrace DEI, that's good for business. But I'm asking a different question. I'm asking now those of us who are among the marginalized communities, how do we begin to take advantage of the DEI advantage quotient? And how do we then sort of redirect our vision from Washington to ourselves in this sort of self-empowered movement that says, what can we do together, as opposed to waiting on structures that continuously fail us to save us?
Well, you bring up another great point. There's a few thoughts that I have on this. First of all, I want to embrace what you said about the corporations getting it. The numbers are on our side. When companies are more diverse, there's better innovation, and they compete better on the global market, period. And if you want to develop that up to an American standard, we as a nation are better, right, from a competitive vantage point when we are more diverse, period. We've proven it. It's been proven over and over again. And that is the message, by the way, Eric, that I take as I go out to champion why we should be doing more about helping vulnerable populations get into college, right? It just helps us to be stronger as a community. It helps us to be stronger as a nation. So completely embrace that point. To the point about what we can do as individuals, I'm encouraged by the fact that entrepreneurialism, for example, is still alive and well in minority communities, particularly within the African-American community. We are outsized in terms of being entrepreneurs. It's something we like, owning businesses. We like taking control of what it is that we do. I've been blessed myself to grown up in an entrepreneurial home. My parents were business owners, and that was the way we did life. I would also say, by the way, as a side note, that I took a number of those entrepreneurial practices into what I do today. You have to think entrepreneurially in terms of how to make it work. Right. But I'm encouraged by that, because I think that is where the empowerment comes. Is the fact that we say, okay, we're not going to depend on the government or the structures to be able to feed us. We're going to feed ourselves. Now, I think also, gentlemen, we realize that capital and access to capital becomes important in entrepreneurial pursuits, and our ability to be able to put something down that makes us look credible is a point. We will be challenged going forward, I must admit, to own more assets to make us more credible. Like, for example, home ownership. Home ownership is being challenged now, but I believe it's going to be even greater challenge in the years to come. Let me give you an example why. One of the things that the Trump administration is proposing is caps on loan limits, which means that right now, the amount of money that a student can be able to borrow to go to college is going to be limited if the Trump administration has its way. All that fundamentally means is that the gap between total cost of attendance going to college, right, and a student's ability to borrow is going to widen. So that means the student has to fill it in some kind of way. Either they have to work, they have to go and get some kind of scholarship, or frankly, they just don't go to school. And so what I'm saying is that when you think about the African-American community and a subset of people who get that degree and then go on and have the cash enough to own a home, that is going to reduce. And we give our homes to our next generation. So that alone is a fundamental challenge to us acquiring assets that we could have later turned around and used to borrow against to start our business, right? Or to help fund a child's business or something like that. So that's just one example of how it's going to become more and more difficult. So I'm encouraged by the fact that we have this sense of empowerment amongst ourselves to take ownership. But I also know that ownership is going to be challenged going forward. And we have to be very smart and very smart, and we have to be very loud about what it is that we need as a community in order to not survive. Right. We have to be thinking thriving going to the next 20 to 30.
Let me go follow up, and then I'm going to pitch it to Tommie again. This is just so interesting. We can do 2 hours with you like it ain't nothing. Yeah, absolutely. But let me ask you this, AJ, as well. In today's world, the discretionary energy that families and communities have feels like it's far less than it's ever been. When I grew up, you knew your neighbors. If I came home, my parents weren't there. I went to the neighbor's house. Yes. Today, the street that I live on, I don't really know any of my neighbors. We don't even have sidewalks. What that means, I believe, is don't come to my house for nothing. And so, but when you look at us as a people, At the end of people's work days, they're so worn out that they don't have the energy to really connect with others. And so as we talk about the we, what are the convening opportunities for that we? Especially with church attendance sort of going down. And I think the number is 28% of young people are decided to be unchurched.
Yes.
And I asked my son about that. He says the church is invisible. So my question to you is, how do we convene in order to pull together? We don't even know each other as well.
Eric, it is amazing to me that that this question even has to be asked. It's a good question. It is amazing that it has to be asked. Yep. And we are literally living in an era right now, the three of us, that has changed so drastically over the course of our lifetime. And brothers, we ain't old. I mean, we getting up there, but we ain't old. Right. And yet here we are asking this question. It's incredible to me. I will say, I think one of the fostering factors in this has been technology itself. I think technology has caused the world, right, to just bury in, be entertained and connected, and be okay to be at solace with oneself, disconnect with the larger world, right? Yeah. That itself has fostered where we are. And the real discouraging part of this is we're bringing up a generation and a generation behind it that is even more intent on being self-secluded, which, by the way, was exacerbated by COVID-19. I'm thinking about, Tommie, your earlier question about young people and kind of how they fit into this mix. That has been exacerbated. Right now, the Trump administration, as you know, is challenging institutions to say you cannot teach these liberal ideas. You must incorporate more conservative ideas. All right, I don't want to get into the mix of whether that's right or wrong, but what I will say is I know examples of conservative thinkers sitting in classrooms that are filled with liberal thinkers and being bullied. Now, I'm not trying to say one is right or one is wrong, but here's the point that I am making. Gentlemen, that is a representation of the lack of civility amongst our young people. Civility was something you learned on the playground. You learned riding your bike. You learned on who was going to take turns to jump the ramp that you set up that was going to kill you if you missed the ramp, right? You learned that there. They're not on playgrounds. They're in basements, bedrooms, on their tech, and that's separated. So now you put them in a college classroom where there's debate. It's supposed to be civil debate, and it's hostile. So it's becoming a greater problem. It's spilling over into the workplace. You talked about being drained by the time you get home. Oftentimes people are drained not because of the work, only the work, but because of the people that they have to deal with while they're at work. Thank goodness for the work that you're doing to help companies and people figure that out. So when I think about where the convenings are, I have to think that there are these social modalities that are going to continue to be developed to allow people to congregate, but it's going to be more and more in a technical space. And I think what's going to need to happen is a different skill development that allows people to get the same type of nurturing and interconnectivity over a screen that they would have over a cup of coffee in the sidewalk cafe, right? I think that's where it's moving for us. And those that are thinking about this, like the two of you, we have to be thinking, I think, in that mode, because I don't ever think we're going back. I just don't. The sidewalks are never going to come back to the neighborhoods, my brother. They're just more and more going to disappear.
What about coal mines?
No going back.
Right.
No going back.
Get back, man.
Yeah. So I'm inspired. I hear hope. I hear strategic, logical, analytical thought around what you're sharing, AJ, what we're discussing in this time. You talked about some evolving trends already.
Yes.
You've alluded to some strategies. As an advocate, devil's advocate, if you will. Listen, first of all, my parents did not go to college and their parents didn't go to college. Even if I were to go to college today in 2025, I would be first generation in 2025. Just like my grandpa, who said he started to work for General Motors back in the 60s, and he drove a deuce and a quarter, which was a vehicle back in the day, right?
I don't know it.
And so today, I am looking at my peers who've graduated from high school, if they have, and they have all the things that I want. Why would I arrest my own success by going to college? Responds to me, the naysayer.
Let me pile on. I'm gonna pile on. Hold up before you go. I'm gonna pile on. I'm gonna pile on and say also it's less relevant to me. I hear that they're taking all the diversity out of higher education. So I might not even see nobody that looks like me. And throw that in on top of what time.
Listen, y'all are giving it to me, gentlemen, and I appreciate it because this is the world I live in on a daily. Right, so I'm really glad to be talking about it on a Saturday morning. Look, when you look at here's what's interesting, gentlemen. When you stack up students by race and by gender, and you ask yourself who is falling out of the college going process fastest, you might be surprised to know it's white males. White males are failing to go to college year over year, percentage-wise, than anyone else. Why? Because exactly what you just said, Tommie. I could sit in my garage, come up with a tech, a new app, a startup, make just as much money, right? And so it is literally a issue that we are grappling with. I know at my school, which is not an HBCU, but even if we were at an HBCU, we should be concerned about all students. So I don't want to indicate that HBCUs are not. So the point is that going back to the point of technology, it is undermining in many ways a student's decision to be able to do something different. The other part of it is that we have a generation now that values the opportunity to do their own thing without being dictated to. College is an institution itself, and you know that the institutions of our land, you pointed it out earlier in the introduction, which I really enjoyed, are being questioned. The institution of business and banking, the institution of government, the institution of education. And so these young people are looking at education and saying, why? Why do I need to subject myself, and why don't I just do my own thing? I'm going to take a gap year. I'm going to go find myself, do my own thing, and be okay with it. Now, what I will say is that this is not a new thing. It's not new that students in the 1950s were asking the same question. Do I really want to go to school next year? But there was a firewall back then where the mama said, you don't have a choice. You get up out here and you're going to school. That is no longer the case. Parents that are raising young people today themselves are saying, well, okay, maybe we do this gap year, because they too, as we said earlier, are questioning this. As far as seeing myself on the campus, what I say about that is fit has always been an issue for success in college. Students have always had to find the right place that works for them. And when they do, you see the numbers say that they matriculate and graduate faster. What happened though is that back in the day when we were doing it, gentlemen, to try to write fit, you had to go through guidebooks and hope that you found the right words that told you about the school, or you had a cousin that went to the school, or maybe a sister that went to college. Today, students can get real time, real quick on what schools might be a fit or not. And what's happening is we're seeing a dramatic shift, for example, in African-American students at the upper end of the income spectrum, okay, who are saying, you know what, I'm not going to Penn. I'm not going to the University of Missouri. I know my parents make $200,000, $300,000 a year. I've been in K through 12 top schools. I've got a 3.8 GPA. I've got a 30 ACT. I'm not going there. Why? Because I just saw the post that they had of a noose hanging from a campus tree, and I just don't want to have that environment. And so they decide to go to where? They go to a Howard. They go to a Spelman. They go to to a Fisk or Tennessee State or what have you. That's the decisions that are being made. So that's a fundamental idea that's changing itself as well. Students are walking with their feet in the schools that they feel are a better fit, or they're deciding to just stay home, and parents are supporting those kinds of decisions. So it is just a different world, man. And it's the world that we have to navigate if we're going to be successful as college administrators. Yeah.
Let me ask you another impossible question. So where should we be putting our energy? And the answer is everywhere. But as we look at our communities and communities of vulnerable people, I like that language. We know that if the child hasn't started getting it by 6, they might be done for. As we look at our people and the struggles that are happening because of segregated education, and we just see all of the kind of just lawlessness in some respects that's happening in elementary schools, and kids are just struggling to get through that part. Who are we speaking to? So where should we be putting our energy? If we don't get it done at the beginning, we certainly don't have anything at the end. We see this widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. The middle class, I think, is shrinking. Where should we be putting our energy? Can we afford to ignore this and to get to where you are?
We cannot. If there is anything we need to embrace more going forward, it's that there is a student life cycle that starts in the womb. To your point, the studies are clear. You can predict the success of a student through college by how they begin in the womb, not just out of the womb. Prenatal care is a factor in how successful ultimately a young person can be. Environmental challenges. If I'm born in an environment where the atmosphere is such that it promotes asthma, that is an issue. If my community are blocks away from a smokestack that's throwing up chemicals that stunt my growth or my development, that is an issue. If my school district is based on tax allocations, and I am getting access only to a underdeveloped, under-resourced school, which, by the way, I want to support teachers. I do want to support teachers, but I will admit, and this is not new news, education, K-12, are having challenges recruiting the best and brightest into the mix. And so not only am I going to a challenge school, I'm going into a school that might have challenged teachers, into a classroom where students have health challenges, behavioral challenges, and so forth, and I'm trying to learn. So the ability for a student to sit in a college classroom has been more complicated. And by the way, we should also throw in access to technology or lack thereof. So how good is my internet speed at home or not? How much equipment I have in the classroom when I go to school or not? How well trained is the faculty to help me to look at all of these technological advances or not? Listen, but the thing is, gentlemen, this is not new. These are the same challenges that we had when the studies were shown of how students were being educated in the 1940s, when they finally got pictures, the NAACP finally got pictures down in rural Mississippi of how these young Black kids were sitting in schoolhouses that were dilapidated, reading second and third hand books from the other white school that down the road and trying to compete. So it's not changed. And it's a sad day to know that. So all that says to us is that we can't give up the fight. We have to continue pressing in, but we can't do it at one end of the funnel and at the ignoring of the other end of the funnel. That's why I do this topic, the state of Black enrollment, changing landscapes, evolving trends, and winning strategies. I've been blessed to have this discussion at multiple conferences around the country, now at some of the major education conferences. And when I do, my presentation starts exactly what we're talking about, at the start of the funnel, because you have to acknowledge it's an entire student life cycle. And right. So if we're going to push Congress, if we're going to push local governments, it's got to be at the behest of all of it and not one to sacrifice one for the other.
Yeah, let me just do a follow-up just to that right there, because I'm going to ask you now, where do we find the hope in a country that looks like it's dominated by an ignorant public? In other words, there's so many things that the Trump administration is able to get over on us because we're actually ignorant. And some of the ways that they're stealing and some of the things that they're doing, people have no complex understanding to the impact of it.
Yes. So
my question to you then is, where do we find the hope that we actually can do these things that you're talking about? We need hope. Tommie and I are optimists.
Yes.
You're an optimist. But where do we find realistic hope that we can then share with our community that there's something on the horizon, or there's something that can be on the horizon to give us some confidence that we can do what's needed in education?
You know, our hope for time immemorial, in my opinion, has always been our young people. It's always been the coming generations. And our ability to notice that and invest in that has always been what has gotten us out of the places that we've been. That will not change in my world, or in my view, and it shouldn't change. And so when I think about that, I think about a couple of key things that I think we need to sow into the lives of our young people. Number one, I think we need to help our young people to regain a sense of civility. I do. I think that we have to inject it into the classroom and be very forceful about their experience around that. I've been fortunate to co-author a curriculum that is based on the principles of Dr. King. It is a global human rights curriculum, and we've been blessed to get it into classrooms across the United States. Dr. Matt Daniels and I, who is a professor down at Anderson University, and it's all focused on trying to help young people get back to this place of civility, where they see dignity in others, and through that dignity, they want to be a part of the solution for that other person. So I think that's number one. I think that is something fundamental. The other thing is that I think we have to also offer young people hope in terms of what lifestyle they can eventually achieve. I don't think that we should make it, unacceptable to have wealth, prosperity, to want. Come on, I just don't think we should make it unacceptable. And what's unfortunately, what's happening is that we have a generation now, younger generation, when you look at candidates like Bernie Sanders, for example, ideas that are more socialistic and so forth, they buy into this because there's a growing sense of we should be minimalist, we should have less. I think that's the wrong direction. I think what has made us strong and made us healthy is that we can aspire to do more. And why would we want to do more? Why am I encouraging us to encourage young people to want more? So that they can be more of a resource to others, right? So that they can be more help. Because when you have less, you retrench, right? You don't want to give. You don't want to extend your life. You don't want to extend your heart. And gone are the days where the old mama down the street who didn't have much did a whole pot of beans and invited the whole community to come and sit. If that was still true, I would say, okay, well, if you get, we get, you get, you don't. But that's gone. And so we have to encourage young people, if you're going to want more, go and get more, but know how to go and give back. So those are the two things. And of course, gentlemen, we're all believers. I want young people to understand that they've got a God-given destiny and that there's hope in the fact that they were born on purpose. And by being born on purpose, they can accomplish great things because they've got help from heaven to do it. That in and of itself is hope. If we can get those three things working in tandem with each other and move that from up to adulthood, I think we got a chance. I think we got a chance. So that's where I'm trying to spend the balance of my life, man, is just trying to really sow those kinds of things in young people.
Yeah, dropping gems today.
Absolutely.
On this beautiful Saturday.
Absolutely.
I would like to invite, just as a quick segue, invite our community that are listening, that are watching, to review the tape again. Again, continue to like and subscribe so you're reminded of opportunities like this. These are conversations in my mind where, AJ, I am less familiar with, but I'm attracted to the facts, the research, and the sensitivity to myself. In other words, I'm attracted to conversations where selfishly it uplifts me.
Yes.
Right? And as I get uplifted, to your point, I then pour into others. But when my vessel is empty and I'm searching for someone to please pour into me, my hope begins to shrivel up. You've poured into us this morning. You've poured into us as a community. You've poured into, I believe, AJ, into people who may be stagnant in their action because they did not know and do not know what to do. You've shared with us changing landscape, some evolving trends, and winning strategies that now I can say, oh, I can do one thing different than I did nothing yesterday.
Absolutely.
If we can touch each person to have hope in those three areas that you talked about and take accountability, and that's what our community was sharing, accountability, commitment, and collaboration.
Yes.
Do better, right? Not just talk the talk. We have to walk the walk.
That's it. That's it.
It's obvious that you are.
That's it. That's it.
So I'll say this as we come to a close. This is just unbelievable. It's unfair. Our community says relationships, all change is small, slow, local. Whenever we have a powerful guest like you on, AJ, we are reminded of the crime of us not spending more time together. So I promise you, we will not allow this much time to pass by before we are connected, because there's some things that we have to do together because our values are similar. And our power is greater as we come together. And I find that oftentimes we as a people, we either complain, protest, or try to work harder. And I don't think the pathway to the future is found through doing those in isolation. We got to come up out of working hard individually, and we have to find ways to tie our arms, arm in arm together, find these solutions. Why don't you make a comment about this person, and then you got the last word, and let people know how they can reach out and find you, Anthony, if they're interested.
Absolutely. Look, I think at the end of the day, we have to embrace the fact that, as the person is saying here in the comment, this work is difficult. It is arduous. It's a quagmire. There's nothing easy about this. And so for those who are going to roll up their sleeves and be about the business of education, I like what the other person said. We've got to fix K-12. We've got to fix the whole student life cycle. You've got to be ready to work. And I do believe that there are those individuals that are out there that are committed to this. If there weren't, we three gentlemen wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't have systems in place right now that are helping people. So I believe that there are those out there that are gutting it out and doing it. I invite more people who are willing to sacrifice and do what is necessary in this space in this mountain that we call education. Join us. Join us here. As for me, they can find me at Loyola University. Shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you. aejones3 at Loyno, LOYNO.edu. I'll repeat that, aejones3 at Loyno, LOYNO.edu. I love ideas. I love talking through tough, complicated subjects, and would love to connect with anyone who would like to share any expression that they would like reaction to. So, and thank you, gentlemen, for this blessed opportunity to be with my good friends here.
Absolutely.
This is how you end a week, start a week with these conversations. This is food for thought. They say that you are what you eat.
Right.
And most people say, the food that you take in your body. But we know that we are what we eat by the words that we take in and process. We're here with A.J. Jones because through the word, he is a vessel. So I would like to thank you, AJ, for continuing to be that vessel.
Thank you.
In the capacity that you serve whenever and wherever you serve. That's our call for today. So to our community, I would like to thank you all always for joining us every week, every Saturday morning for another installment of Diversity Conversations. Take care.
Take care.